Welcome to Oklahoma Gardening. On today's program, nutrient management specialist Hailin Zhang helps us calculate how much fertilizer that we need to apply to our garden. We explore some beautiful new landscaping on the OSU-Stillwater campus. And Casey and Hailin also look at the proper way to use organic fertilizers. Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance is provided by TLC, Oklahoma's leading garden center, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, Tulsa's source for great gardens, southwoodgardencenter.com. and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
Dr. Zhang, for our organic fertilizers, we hear a lot of times, talking about blood meal and bone meal and things like that. What makes an organic fertilizer?
Well, there's a lot of choices of organic sources. The USDA has a definition, for organics. Basically, it's from a natural material without synthetic fertilizer, pesticides. Even GMO products is not included in this product. Mm-hmm. There are some commercial available, like blood meal, mostly just the nitrogen, and then bone meal is the phosphorus. And then potash, it's a chemical mined from underground because it's not being processed. It's also considered natural or organic.
Okay, so you could treat your garden with all organic fertilizers. One thing though to always kind of point out is a lot of times the ratios might be a little bit smaller. We hear about fish emulsion and worm castings, and we also have some compost here. What is the ratio on compost?
Well, that's a good question. If you're using these commercially available organic products for your garden, it's going to be very expensive. Fortunately, we have some other sources readily available, like this compost, It has some nutrient there, not very high. Typically, it's about 1% of nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, 1% of potassium. So we talked about using commercial fertilizer to fertilize your lawn and gardens, like use 2 pounds or 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet. For this one, you need about 200 pounds per 1,000 square feet, which is about 5 tons per acre. Mm-hmm. Now, feedlot manure or other type of manure also considered organic, like a poultry litter. Actually has 3% nitrogen, 3% of potassium and phosphorus. Then you just need 1/3 of the amount compared to the compost.
Now sometimes that can get you in trouble because you might think it's not very much, it's a small amount, so you can overdo it easily too.
That's exactly right, because people consider this as a waste. Plus maybe there's some misinformation, like some recommendation tell homeowners to apply 2 inches thick of material on top of the soil. Well, if you calculate or weigh it, it's over 100 tons per acre. Mm-hmm. This is why we see our soil build up with high phosphorus and potassium. They're coming from manure or compost. So to apply at a reasonable amount, 5 tons per acre, you spread out, you barely see stuff on the ground. Typically, you apply maybe 1/8 to 1/4 inch, or no more than half an inch, mix into the soil. That should be good enough for one season.
Okay. And a lot of times you mentioned that sometimes organic can be more expensive, but that's not necessarily because the package is more expensive. It might be that you actually need more to get the rate at which you need to apply to get your 1 pound of nitrogen.
That's one reason. The package itself is also expensive. Like this one could cost you over $10 a bag. So $10 you can buy a big bag of commercial fertilizer, or you can buy compost from the store for $2 to $2.50 per 50 pounds. So that give you a lot of nutrients. But I would like encourage everybody to recycle their yard waste, like the grass clippings, the vines, the leaves in the fall. Do not take to landfill. They're valuable resource. We can directly bury into the soil or make a compost, produce organic fertilizer yourself. And you supply the nutrients, supply the organic matter, then that would cut down your usage of commercial fertilizer. So that's a win-win situation.
And on your budget too.
Oh, exactly. And you get the exercise, you smell this nice compost like this.
Yes.
So we have lots of information available how to make a compost yourself.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Zhang.
You're welcome.
I'm here with Dave Brown, OSU's landscape designer, and we're going to take a look at a new garden that just opened last week on OSU's campus, right during graduation actually. This is the Human Science East Courtyard. And Dave, there was a lot that went into this before you started selecting the plants, and I just wanted to talk to you about that. What are some of the things that you had to think about in this design?
Well, the first thing we think about when we're designing is where on campus we're designing and how it's going to relate to the surrounding buildings and to the rest of the campus as well. We're standing on Legacy Walk, which was a project that we did a couple of years ago that becomes a very strong access point across the campus, and it terminates on the Human Science building, and it also terminates on what's going to be the new Spears building as well. So that being a focal point to one of our major accesses on campus, or a bookend, we felt it was very important to do this project right. It has a very high design hierarchy for us. So first thing we were looking at is the axis of Legacy Walk. And we had some challenges to overcome as we were doing it. When we did Legacy Walk, this oak tree right here, we feel very strongly about protecting the trees here on campus and do what we can. And so we had to work with that oak, but it kind of pushed the axis of the sidewalk here to the north a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And when you say the access, you're talking about the U shape of the building. It's a little bit to the right rather than dead on in the center.
Correct. If you drew a straight line down the sidewalk all the way down and saw it die into the building, it's not going to land on the center point. It's going to land off here to the north into like the north 1/3 of this side of the building, and it becomes a little bit unbalanced that way. So that was one of the things that we had to consider. Another thing we had to consider is running straight into the building is a very old steam tunnel that services the building with utilities. A lot of the wiring, conduit, and things like that run in, and we had to take care of that. So we noticed as we were looking at the axis and we were looking at the steam tunnel that if we lay a sidewalk or the ribbon stone like you see here on Legacy Walk, which also not only serves as accent, but it serves for easier use for wheelchairs and strollers and things like that. But if we copied that form down and use that for our steam tunnel lid, then we could use the access point of the middle of the sidewalk and more or less lined up with Legacy Walk. So it was a little bit fortunate for us that it worked out that way. And that's how the sidewalk was placed, and that kind of started dictating the spaces in the form of the garden.
So the garden over there started with this tree on the opposite side of the street actually.
Yeah, it's a good way to say it, yeah.
So now, when you moved across the street to the actual garden design, what did you have to think about after you had your access defined?
So once we had the access defined, I started thinking about a space by how I want the space to be used, what is in the best interest of the client being the teachers and administrators and students of human sciences here. And so we wanted to create a really nice, usable outdoor space. And we also, if you don't mind me jumping back, we also looked at the other end where Spears Building is going to have a stage in their landscape as well.
And that's at the other end of this axis?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we figured it would help the two spaces relate. So we're not only trying to relate to Legacy Walk, but we're trying to relate to the Spears Courtyard, and then use a stage. And our stage, we wanted it to be useful in outdoor presentations, classrooms, displaying student art, maybe the fashion show, some of these forums that come about. Maybe this gives them that space that they want, where they can bring people from the outside or the inside out, because that's really one of the main goals that we try as landscape designers, landscape architects, to pull people out into our spaces.
Right, right.
So we looked at usability there, and so that's where you see the stage coming in right there.
And there's something unique about that stage. The top of it is actually a certain pattern that you chose.
In the College of Human Sciences, in their textile, in their fabrics, they developed an OSU tartan, which is now on the official Scottish registry. So a tartan is like a plaid pattern that you see like on kilts.
Dave, I think it's really unique that you actually tied in the tartan that was designed here by the college into the garden design. So about the visual weight of this, the stage is to the left a little bit. So tell me about what you had to do to kind of balance that in the garden.
Well, the way we balanced it is one of the requests of the client, the customer here, is they wanted a walking garden. And so when we started looking at the heaviness of the stage and of the sidewalk kind of being shifted to one side, we thought that we could help balance that out and make it feel more complete by putting the walking garden on this side of the courtyard, giving them a unique place to display their donor benches and to be able to come out and relax and enjoy a garden right outside of their building.
Yeah, so that's your more thoroughfare where you got a lot of heavy traffic, and this is a space for students to come out and enjoy and study. So what went into some of the plant selection?
Plant selection we were thinking about in a few terms. We wanted to make sure that the plants we chose could take the environment we were putting them in, and with a few we are taking a couple liberties and maybe some risks, but we'll let you know how they do. But we also wanted to make sure that we had some good seasonal interest too, because the time that this would be most used when the kids come back and start going back to school is in the fall and in the winter, and so we need it to look good at that time of year as well as spring and summer. The colors of the plants that we chose was based on, if you're coming down Legacy Walk and looking at it, what we really wanted is we wanted the colors to pop out and to have kind of their own individuality and not just have this visual mass of green mass from a distance with what happens sometimes with plants. So we use contrasting colors, and one of my favorite contrasts is purple and yellow.
Right.
My high school mascot.
Complementary colors.
Purple and gold, yeah. And there's quite a few selections of plants out there where you can find that purple and the chartreuse or the yellows. And so what we're looking at here is Crimson Fire Loropetalum. It's going to get up just a little bit bigger. I think that's going to get up to maybe 4 foot, so it'll kind of start to spread towards each other and give it a little bit more massing, and also help this space to feel a little bit more protected and secluded, more garden-esque, I guess. And that also, if you'll look behind the benches, we have them there. In front of those, we have Carl Forster feather reedgrass.
And so that kind of gives a back to the bench. A lot of times people like to feel secure and feel like they're sitting against the wall. So that creates that effect.
Correct. We have a very obvious thoroughfare bringing people in. It's meant to be a main entrance. It's meant to handle quite a bit of foot traffic. And then just right here, we have a garden where we want people to be comfortable. And so that's how we handled that, is to put something that'll soften that, kind of give people that feeling of having that seclusion and protection.
And you've recycled the benches that were already existing here. So you've been able to repurpose some things. And then can you speak a little bit about the trees that you've selected?
These are butterfly magnolias. They are a hybrid magnolia. We're expecting about in the 20-foot height and width range. And so it creates this overhang or this alley coming down the sidewalk. And again, we want that feeling of garden and protection and comfort and mitigating the sun off of the people who want to come out here and use that.
And speaking of sun, you use some columnar trees that are on the south side of the north building, the north side of that U, and that will help kind of protect them and shade some of those offices as well.
Correct. These are Arnold tulip poplars. We expect that they're going to get up maybe about the 4th floor, maybe just below that crest, but they will stay columnar, help us mitigate. These offices over here and classrooms, they get a lot of sun, so we're trying to cool that down for them.
Dave, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the intention and the reasons behind your design here. And I would encourage all of the visitors next time they're on campus, come check out the Human Science East Courtyard. So Dr. Zhang, our report says that we need nitrogen, but when you go to the nursery to buy fertilizer, there's nothing that's labeled as nitrogen on the front of the bag. I mean, they're come up with all these different names and there's a lot of numbers and formulas. So how do we know exactly what we need to buy?
Well, you're right. On our report, we only recommend the pure nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. But when you go to the market, the fertilizers come in different compounds, like urea or potash. They're not 100% of the nutrients, okay? For example, this is a urea, right? It only has about 45% of nitrogen.
Okay.
Then you have to do a little bit of conversion to get the right amount of nitrogen to your field.
Okay, so let's say we buy urea to put on our soil. How do we figure out how much of this we need? You say we need 1 pound of actual nitrogen. This is only 45% of actual nitrogen. So how do we decide how much urea we need to apply on 1,000 square feet?
Well, that's just a little conversion. Are you ready to do some
Let's
grade
do
level
some math? Yes.
Okay. Well, suppose we need 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Okay. We're using urea to supply this nitrogen. Urea contains 45% of N. Okay. Well, the calculation is very easy. Just 1 pound of nitrogen needed divided by the concentration of that fertilizer. In this case, is 45%. So actually, it's 1 divided 0.45, and you are going to get 2.2. That means 2.2 pounds of this urea will supply 1 pound of nitrogen.
Okay.
So just go out and apply 2.2 pounds of urea to the area you want to fertilize it.
And so this has 4 pounds. I only need 2.2, so all I have to buy is this one bag. If I had a larger yard, like 5,000 square feet, then we would just multiply this 2.2 times 5.
That would be 11 pounds of urea needed for your lawn.
Okay. And now what if I bought blood meal? Blood meal shows that it just has nitrogen in it, 12% of actual nitrogen. So how do I figure out how much of this I would need to apply?
Well, first of all, blood meal is considered an organic source of nitrogen. The content of nitrogen in this product is lower than urea. So we have to apply more to get the same effect.
Okay.
The calculation is similar to this. You just change 45 to the new product is 12%. So you divided 12% instead of 45. 12. That would be higher than 2.2. I guess probably closer to 8. Okay.
Okay.
So instead of 2.2 pounds, you need 8 pounds of this black meal to supply 1 pound of nitrogen to 1,000 square feet.
Now, because there's only 2 3/4 pound in here, I'm going to need a couple of extra bags for this.
Exactly. Actually, this will cost you more
Right.
than urea.
So if you were comparing and these were the same price, let's say, and I only need 1 bag of this, but I might need 4 bags of this.
Yes, I definitely would go with this one. But some people like produce vegetable organically.
Right.
So this is their preferred choice.
Okay, that makes sense. So Dr. Zhang, what do we do if we have a report that shows that we need all 3, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium? How do we decide what we need to purchase?
Well, first of all, you go to the store to buy the fertilizer contain all 3 nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and the potassium, okay? So then you do a little bit calculation like we did for nitrogen, okay? Let's say you need 1 pound of nitrogen, 2 pounds of phosphorus, 3 pounds of potassium
So
for your garden.
let's say our report
Okay.
came back and said we needed this. Yeah.
Right. Now you are using 10, 20, 10 to supply this nutrient. First of all, these 3 numbers stand for the percentage of nutrient in the bag, okay? So let's go with based on the lowest amount.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you based on this, you over apply nitrogen.
Okay.
So basically, 1 divided by 10%, okay, equals 10. That means you need 10 pounds of this mixed fertilizer to get 1 pound of nitrogen.
Okay.
This will come up, we also give you about 2 pounds of phosphorus because the percentage is double of nitrogen. So those 2 already satisfied,
Okay.
right? But the potassium, you need 3 pounds. This one 10%. You only give you 1 pound, okay?
Right.
So you still need 2 additional pounds of potassium.
Okay.
What do you do in this case? Well, you go out and buy the fertilizer contain potassium only. Like this is muriated potash, okay? 60%, it's pretty high concentrate. Well, you need 2 pounds of that and then you have 60%. So basically you need about a little bit over 3, let's say 3.3 pounds of this potash to supply 2 pounds of potassium. That way you have all 3 nutrients satisfied.
So you not only would be applying your 10-20-10, but then you'd also be applying some potash to satisfy your 1 pound nitrogen, 2 pounds phosphorus, and 3 pounds potassium.
Exactly.
And you would only do this once, not every time you fertilize, correct?
Well, for phosphorus and the potassium, typically you only need to apply once based on a soil test report.
Okay.
For nitrogen, typically you need to apply several times per year. Like nitrogen for lawn, most people apply 2 to 3 times. If you have a warm season like Bermuda grass, you apply once, late May or early June, maybe another time, early July and August.
Because nitrogen will leach out with water, rain, irrigation, whereas phosphorus and potassium actually cling to the soil a little bit more.
Yes.
So once you fertilize the phosphorus and potassium, you won't need to keep applying.
No, our recommendation is also based on annual requirement for P and K.
Okay.
So once you apply, this should last for a whole season or whole year. But nitrogen is per application. Then how often do you fertilize? It depends on you. If you like to mow the yard more often, you put more there. Otherwise, just do what most environment friendly way.
So after we applied this to our garden, then you would recommend additional fertilizer of just a urea or a nitrogen fertilizer?
Typically just nitrogen only. Urea is a good choice, ammonia nitrate, ammonia sulfate are also nitrogen fertilizers.
Okay.
So it depends on where you can get those fertilizers.
Or blood meal if you want to go organic.
Blood meal. Another choice for phosphorus is bone meal.
Bone meal.
And then you have a fireplace wood ash, has a lot of potassium. That would help you to build up the potassium level as well.
Okay. Thank you for doing the math for us, Dr. Zhang.
You're welcome.
There are lots of great horticultural events this time of year. Be sure and consider these activities when you're making your plans for the weeks ahead. Next week on Oklahoma Gardening, we'll be digging into soil fertility again with a look at soil pH and what it means to your garden. Barbara Brown will also let us know how pH is important in our food and food preservation. And we'll take time to stop and enjoy Oklahoma's roadside flowers. So join us then for more TV You'll Grow to Love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, TLC Garden Centers, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.